Hey everybody, it's your old pal Chuck. Well, over the weekend I finally got around to watching the Barbie movie. Yes, I know. At least I got most of my Christmas decorations down. Most. But I just wanted to share some thoughts. I'm sure a lot of it is going to be stuff you've already heard, but hey, you didn't hear it from me, so it might be new to you. Before I begin, I just want to start with one universal truth. And while I would say this is true before the movie came out, with the success of the film, both at the box office and at the Oscars, Barbie is the single greatest toy brand in history. It has transcended generations. It has consistently performed well at retail. It has transcended pop cult to become part of pop culture. This is a universal fact. This is not an opinion. This is undeniable, and it's just how it is. I mean, it has saved Mattel several times over the years from bankruptcy. When the Masters of the Universe film failed, and this is after Mattel floated Canon Films several hundred of thousands of dollars to keep the production going. They were going to go bankrupt, and the sales of Barbie, who was having a bit of a renaissance in the 1980s, we girls can do anything. Hey, right, Barbie? That saved them. But that's really more of a story for another time. So yeah, Barbie is the greatest toy brand in history. It is the one that has consistently been around. Think about it. There were periods of time that we didn't have G.I. Joe, Transformers, He Man, especially. Um, you know, if you want to go international, there were periods of time where there was no Doctor Who or Kamen Rider or Sentai. They may be brief, but they were there. Barbie has consistently been around. So I just want to get that out of the way. To start my opinions, I want to share with you that after the film, I asked my sister two questions. The first question is, was this the film you waited 45 or so years for? And her answer was no. Because when she was a little girl and she played with Barbie, and to give you some context, Barbie is to my sister as Transformers and G.I. Joe are to me. That they are really part of our life and identity. Um, she said she didn't have a movie. She had several that she played. When she would play with Barbie, she would create these stories, and yes, she did. Let me tell you, with depth and subplots, and maybe it was because she was also watching the soap operas of the day, and that played into it. But that was the thing. A little aside here, but if you've ever wondered why Barbie never had a Saturday morning cartoon or a daily syndicated show, it was a conscious decision by the people at Mattel because they didn't want to force a narrative on Barbie. They wanted to let the girls create that story. Like, they have the character. This is your story. This is your, universe. Again, girls can do anything, right, Barbie? So there was that. Now, yes, in the early 2000s, and even I think going up till today, there have been dozens of direct to video movies, but that's really more about selling the product and stuff like that. So the second question I asked her was, if you saw this movie as a little girl, would you have enjoyed it? And her answer was no, because she wouldn't have understood what was going on, and most of the jokes would have gone over her head. So, with that, but now she enjoyed the film. So, with all that being said, let's get into it. One of the things that my sister and I both enjoyed, and that it was one of these moments where we had to pause the movie because we started geeking out, was the look of Barbie Land, the dream house. That was the dream house. That's what we saw in the commercials. The way things worked, the way Barbie ate, the way she showered, the way that the clothes just magically changed. You didn't see getting naked or stuff because that wasn't the play. Even when they explained it in the film, how Barbie never used stairs. She had the slide and came in through the front door to get into the first level of the home, and then would come off the roof into the car because that's what girls did back then. That got us. The second thing, when they started going through the outfits, and you saw this a couple times during the film, and they would be thrown in the air and then they would freeze in midair. That positioning, that's how those outfits appeared on the card in stores with the name. So that we just lost because that was hysterical. And throughout the film, my sister would actually pause and say, "Oh, I had that Barbie. I had that outfit. That's this. That's." I mean, for an example, towards the end of the film, remember there was a Barbie that was a talking Barbie that said the infamous phrase "math is hard." That the voice chip was actually removed and implanted in the talking GI Joe, and then the GI Joes were returned to the store. That Barbie's in the film. Towards the end, it's in this floral dress. She pointed that out. Now, of course, as I said to her, I guarantee you there were people who could identify every outfit and every doll because they're that much of a Barbie fan and historian. The other thing, and this what really got us, when the ambulance showed up on the beach after Ken bounced back to the water, and the way it opened up in the back, that we distinctly remember from the commercials, and that cracked us up. Now that was I should have asked my sister, but I think the Barbie ambulance came about at a time where every other toy line was trying to work in some form of transforming feature to compete with the robots in the skies. So that's why it opened up and became more like an emergency room than an ambulance. But that got us. So really, they leaned hard into what would make Barbie Barbie and the little gimmicks and novelties of the line. And I really appreciated how at the beginning they just explained every Barbie is Barbie, every Ken is Ken. There you go. That was good. Now in terms of the themes of the film, um, at first I had said that when they're in Barbie Land, maybe if there was a makeup or a CGI effect to make them look more plastic, and that as they entered the real world, you saw them transition to looking more human, that might have helped convey the message. But that was because I thought in Barbie Land, they were dolls. And then the dolls became human when they came into the real world. As my sister kind of explained, and it was sort of kind of explained in the film, the residents of Barbie Land are not toys. They are the essence of the Barbie that the girls create and are through the toy, and that they're not the toy, they're like the essence and consciousness of the toy, of the fantasy that the girls create. The easier way I can put this, if you're a Transformers fan, in Transformers Victory, the brain masters, like Starsaber's brain of courage, really was, I mean, yes, it was a little robot that became the face, but really it was the essence of his spirit. So in Barbie Land, that's the essence, the spirit of the toy. So when they came into the real world, the spirit became real. That's also why they were the same size as humans, and there wasn't like that they were smaller and then grew. That because that was my thing. It's like, well, how do you explain them being the same size as humans? And that so in that regard, yeah, I could understand why they didn't look more plastic. And then throughout the course of the film, stereotypical Barbie started taking on more human traits because they became more human, becoming, she became more human with the cellulite, the flat foot. As my sister pointed out, there was a scene towards the very end where you got this close up of her face and you saw the pores, the little imperfections and stuff. Even though I agree with the narrator Helen Mirren that Margot Robbie may not have been the best choice for someone to say I'm ugly. But yeah, that I thought was, I thought was really cool. Now, I mean, I had opinions on this film from before watching it, just because I read and watched a lot of reviews and opinions. Now, the big thing is, the talk about the patriarchy and stuff like that. In my opinion, seeing it how it was presented in the film, I think it was more of a this was more of a parody and a wink and a nod to the people who go on about that. That really it's not that big of an issue. And that, we see when the movie starts, we're all the way on one side of the spectrum. And then it swings all the way in the opposite side. And both extremes are not good. You the way the world works is through compromise. And I think at the very end of the film, you do start to see that, where the Barbies are going to let the Kens have more of a voice and more of a place in Barbie land instead of just being there, which I think is important. Could it have been presented a little bit better? Could it have been a little more pronounced? Yes, I truly think so. I think there needed to be more of an example of compromise. But also, let me just also add, Ken was the Ken doll is the ultimate accessory to Barbie. That's what it was designed for. It was an accessory. It was to go with Barbie. Its outfits were, to complement other Barbie outfits. So yeah, it was a toy. It was an accessory. It was the ultimate accessory. That I think was something that needs to be understood, and that a lot of people complaining about it didn't understand the history of Barbie in that regard. Um, but yeah, I mean, were there some parts that I feel were a little too heavy-handed? Yeah, the monologue by America Ferrera's character about the woe is woman and the burdens of this. I think it could have been handled a little bit better, but it was also tempered when you had the Ruth Hader character, and played by Rhea Perlman. I think I got the name right, and like the creator of Barbie, and they did not ignore her failings. I mean, that I thought was kind of cool. If you kind of didn't get a lot of that, look her up. She was an interesting character. She was fired rather prejudiciously, if that's a real word, from Mattel because she did some stuff that was not okay, and they even talked about it. Because the idea, as she explained, Barbie is an ideal. No woman can ever live up to Barbie. No girl could ever live up to Barbie. It's a fantasy because again and again this comes from faith. Nobody's perfect. Man, meaning human, is a flawed creature. We have to learn to be good. We have to learn right from wrong. That's why Ken, the Ryan Gosling Ken and all the other Kens swung all the way in the opposite direction, because there wasn't that guiding force to teach them that yes, the man is the provider, the man is the head, but it's not through an oppressive way. You have to fight your nature. You have to fight your urges. Life is a compromise. People work together. And I kind of would have liked to have seen that. I mean, there was other little things like the fact that America Ferrera's husband was the stereotypical clueless, bumbling husband male, which in female driven comedies and productions of that nature, that's the usual stereotypical. Whatever. It is what it is. But I think there could have been that guiding hand, that teachable moments, and I don't think there was that many. The very end. Now, by the way, the very end of the film, which you know, I think they talk about when stereotypical Barbie becomes human and decides she doesn't want to be the fantasy. She wants to be the one who creates the fantasy. That's a big moment, and I think that's very telling. And I thought that was kind of cool, but that also explains why Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie have said no sequel. We'll get more to that in the end. The very last part, I think, was not necessary and would probably lead to a lot of conversations that maybe parents didn't want to have yet with their children. So I think that could have been left out. And really, overall, and my sister agreed with me on this. I think if the Barbie license was taken out of the film, you would have had the same film, the same story, but it wouldn't have had the heart and charm. And who knows if the film would have gotten made or would have been even released to theaters. I think there would have been a lot more blowback because I think it would have been a lot harsher and a lot meaner and aggressive. And it certainly would not have had the success that it did. So, with that being said, this wasn't necessarily a Barbie film. This was a film that used Barbie characters and locations and imagery. So, as I mentioned, the ending of the film basically does not allow for a sequel. I mean, I was kind of hoping that there was going to be some way that this could lead into a Mattel shared universe. Like when you're leaving Barbie Land, how about we see, with all the signs, how about you see a sign that just says Eternia this way? That's not going to work. That would not work with this film. But in learning about the history and development of this film, this was a PG 13 film. Originally, the intent was to make a PG Barbie film, which I think would be great. So now that this film has been done, and again, my sister agrees with me, we would like to see a PG Barbie film that's Barbie, that tells, a Barbie story, that there's not like this heavier message on top of it. Like Barbie's and her friends compete in the battle of the bands, or there's a major school project or something like light and fun that's really more in the family film type of thing. Um, and stuff like that. Just or she even said, give us an Alan film, an Alan and Midge film. Which, by the way, I thought that was great. They were included. All the other canceled Barbies, Earring. I mean, they really, like I said at the beginning, they leaned into it. But yeah, I'd like to see a PG Barbie film. I'd like to see the film that my sister as a little girl would have enjoyed and gotten. Will we? Who knows? It will not. I certainly would not do $1 billion. I don't think any Barbie film from this point on would do $1 billion. Um, I mean, at one point I was even saying I'd like to see how Greta Gerwig would do Masters of the Universe, but I don't think that would work. I mean, maybe she could do a She-Ra film, but it would probably end up as a She-Ra film that's completely detached from the Masters of the Universe story, which it might have to be anyway because copyrights. Again, that's another video. But I'm not sure. But maybe we could get like a PG Barbie film that could then lead into a Masters of the Universe film, which may or may not be coming. So, yeah, all in all, I mean, just to summarize, I thought the Barbie film was very good. I get a lot of the complaints. I think a lot of the complaints are justified. I think a lot of them come from people not understanding the history of the brand. I think there were a few moments that were a bit much and maybe could have been dialed back and taken out. Um, and I also understand why there's not going to be a sequel. Is this going to be a film I'll maybe want to watch again? I don't know. I know there's featurettes. Maybe we'll watch the featurettes or something. But yeah, uh, again, let me just say I'm happy for its success. I think it deserves it. I think this has really solidified, has taken a something that was set in marble and has coated it in like titanium. That, as I said at the beginning, Barbie is the number one toy brand. So if you haven't watched the film yet, give it a chance. Um, don't if you want to be offended, you'll be offended. Uh, if you don't want to be offended, you'll enjoy it, but you'll catch a few things. Um, And that's about it. So I almost gone 20 minutes on this. So thank you so much for watching. I do have a poll on my channel if you would mind voting in it. That will involve something coming later this week. And this is your old pal Chuck, and I'll talk to you. Click.